Christendom. He was newly married to a rich and beautiful wife, and he was the recognized heir to the throne of England. He was at long last a success, but his joy was to be short-lived. As Robert neared his native Norman soil, the shocking news reached him that the King of England was dead, and that, for the second time in his life, he had been beaten to the crown by a younger brother. What, his followers wanted to know, was he going to do about it? Robert had been born some time around 1052, at a time when his father was Duke of Normandy and not expected to be crowned king of anywhere. He was approximately 14 years old when William embarked for England with the intention of conquering it. He remained in Normandy, where, as its recognized heir, he governed under the guidance of his mother, Matilda. When she, too, sailed for England in 1068 to be crowned and later to give birth to her youngest son, Henry, Robert was deemed to be of an age to assume the reins of Norman rule in his own name. Robert was a very different man from his father. They had one physical similarity, in that Robert had William's burly physique and barrel chest, useful attributes for a man who was expected to take part in armed combat, but he inherited his mother's relative lack of height. This resulted in his being given the name Curtos, short breeches or short legs, in his youth, an epithet that stuck for the rest of his life and by which he is generally known today. They were also different in character. Robert was affable and easygoing, not adjectives generally applied to the king, and he was also described as talkative and extravagant. There was no specific conflict between father and son for around 10 years, as William concentrated on subduing resistance in England and Robert took his first steps into governance in Normandy. But as he grew out of his teens and into his 20s, he gained in confidence and in expectation, and not unnaturally wanted more responsibility. He was supported in this by a group of companions of his own age who were the sons of his father's Norman magnates, and who encouraged him to be extravagant. They urged him to ask William for more money and more power. "It is a great dishonor to you, and injury to us, and many others, that you should be deprived of royal wealth. Why do you tolerate it?" Although Robert was in nominal charge of Normandy, the duchy that had once been the height of his expectation and the heart of the family's power base, he was actually by now on the periphery of his father's lands, as England took up more and more of his time and energy. Robert was not helped by the fact that his brothers, Richard and William Rufus, were in England at their father's side, and therefore had more of his attention, and more of a chance to impress him at first hand. Richard was killed in an accident sometime in the early 1070s, when he was in his mid-teens, but William Rufus continued to prosper. He took after his father in temperament as well as physique, and Robert, his status as the eldest aside, may have justifiably felt that Rufus was supplanting him as the favoured son. He needed to bolster his position. In 1077 he asked William to relinquish Normandy to him permanently. William's answer was in the negative. He might be King of England, but he was also Duke of Normandy. He had spent his youth fighting for it, had narrowly escaped being murdered for it several times, and he was not inclined to let the reins of power slip from his own grasp. Robert, having worked himself up to make the demand, now suffered a disastrous loss of face at being denied, and felt obliged to leave the duchy entirely. He was, however, fortunate in having relatives and friends in high places who were ready to help him out and to cause some mischief for King William, whom they felt to be too powerful. Robert was welcomed both in Flanders, where the Count was his maternal uncle, and at the court of Philip I of France. Within a short time, Robert found himself fighting in Philip's campaign in the Vexin, an area lying on the border between Normandy and France.